Kia ora, my name is Elijah Ioane. I am 19 years old and I'm currently working at the DHB as a COVID Pacific navigator based in ED. So I was born and bred here in Flaxmere, Hawke's Bay. I'm half Samoan, half Cook Island. I went to school at Hastings Boys and Flaxmere Primary. Grew up with a lot of sports, but I didn't play any. I've tried Ripper Rugby, but I only ate the oranges. And tried my hand at golf where I'm okay but not good. Current communities I'm currently ripping are the Cook Island youth, the LGBT community as well, and the young creative community here in Hawke's Bay.
Talofa lava o lo'o ingoa o Saele and Elijah. Born and bred in Wellington, Lower Hutt, Wainui specifically. Moved up here to the Bay about 4 years ago. I've been married for going on to 10 years. I have 3 kids and I work for the DHB Public Health Child Health Team. I have a dual role, so Community Health Worker / Pacific Cultural Liaison Advisor. Simply, I'm like the bridge between the DHB and the Pacific community. We've got about 60 in our team and only 2 of us are Pacific. It's kind of to link us into our Pacific communities, but also in a way that we take care of our Pacific communities with a voice, and how can we deliver our services better for our people.
Talofa lava, o loa ingoa Ali Liota, sau mai nuu whangua, apuli muta le tongo manofoli. Talofa, I'm Ali Liota, born in the dirty south, aka Dunedin, but raised in a place called Paradise, but some of you may know it as Puriro. Now I reside here in Hawke's Bay, working at the Hawke's Bay District Health Board as a population health advisor, and been lucky enough to work on the sexual health portfolio. Yeah, for sexual health for Pacific people, I wish it was the energy that we have for mental health. I wish that transition to sexual health. And we've got a lot of advocates pushing for mental health, and I feel like the same thing can be done for sexual health. We know it happens, but we just don't acknowledge or accept it the same we do for mental health. And mental health is kind of laid a platform or pathway for sexual health to follow slowly. And I feel like that's what we should be doing, and I also see a potential for our Pacific cultural values to be used to address sexual health. Like for Samoans, the value of tautua, that service that we have to our community. Same thing at home, our parents have a tautua or service to their children to help them navigate sexuality, sexual health before they go explore the world on their own. And too often our young Pacific people, they don't get that tautua at home, so they fall into the trap when they're out there climbing through the window at night. I mean, all that stuff could be prevented if tautua was nurtured in terms of sexual health. So I feel like we can utilise our cultural values, beliefs, but reframe in a way that suits sexual health. Nah. Yeah, I did. I was lucky enough to have talk off. Well, it was mum first, not dad, but because mum's a midwife, so there was always condoms around the house, and obviously she looks after babies, and she's part of that pregnancy journey. So mum took us to work and stuff, and obviously being curious little kids, we always question how babies formed and all that sort of stuff. So when we got to college, that's where mum kind of talked to us about the deed. The good deed. But no, so lucky enough, from mum's professional hat, she could balance being both a midwife but also a mother, just to make sure her teenage boys were, being safe and just knew what to do.
I think the closest thing I got to the talk was after the sexual health class we did in year 9. I asked where did babies come from, because I live with my grandparents. My grandmother said a stork brings them. And then my grandfather did but I thought it was this and the thing, and my grandmother threw an orange at him. That's the closest I ever got to the talk.
I don't remember ever having a talk, and I think it wasn't like they didn't care about it. They kind of just thought that, that will get it somewhere else, that it'll take care of itself. But I don't even remember doing health, like talking about it in health or, Yeah, it was just navigate your own waka. So, oh yeah, this is how, oh yeah, okay.
I don't think they just went to the nurse. I think on my generation they just found out from that Hawke site and Google, because you know, you didn't really want to go ask this papa lady in the office who's old as hell, and you didn't really want to talk. If you couldn't feel comfortable talking with your parents, why would you want to go talk with a random ass stranger about the birds and the bees? So a lot of like the boys, you know, joke around and then found out through like the internet, and then got snapped during school.
In high school, we knew there was like a youth clinic, and it was down the road from where we were. So we knew, we just learned, I don't know, from each other that there was a health clinic down the road. And if you needed to go there, you go there, and you'll go with your friend. I don't remember going to a school nurse, or definitely not our own doctor, because of course you go to the doctor with your parents. So you'll never ask there. But yeah, I just remember there was a youth clinic near school.
It really depended on the relationships you had as well. Like, I remember at school there was, I don't even know if we had a nurse there, to be honest. But I remember when boys wanted condoms, they had to go sign some slip to note that they collected this amount of condoms. And then all the boys found out mum was a midwife, and they just hustled me for condoms. So the ones that were keen and always willing to go out their way to reach out, those are the ones who were actually seeking some sort of advice or stuff like that. So they're like, Ali, do you reckon your mum can hook it up with you? So yes, I was kind of the supplier.
You're the man.
You could have had your own underground business.
Yeah.
$10
it was all for free though. So you don't want to be one of those guys. First I was just cracking up here, because you know teenage boys are like, just especially at an all boys school, like everyone just takes it as a joke and laughs and, well, this guy sucks. Oh, you know, man.
Have you done that yet?
Getting your ends. I mean, the first time I was just laughing, and then the second time one of the boys was pretty serious about asking, and then like the conversation kind of changed from being as a joke to kind of be like they want to keep safe and all that sort of stuff. So, and like at the time I didn't really think too much about it, but then now I look back and be like, oh, actually there was some groundbreaking stuff for boys to, you know, be vulnerable and actually approach and ask. Yeah, at school you talk about stupid stuff. And like you can just say anything and everyone just laugh at it, and like you kind of build some sort of confidence and just feel a bit comfortable to just share almost anything with the boys. And like you'd rather share some stuff with the boys than share with your parents, especially for a lot of our Pacific boys. If their mum or dad found out, they get a hiding, but the boys they'll just be, don't worry, Ilse, I got you. So
I think it's different. Like when we, you know, back in high school, you don't talk about like the relationships that you were having or the sexual relationships you were having, because you don't want to be seen as that girl, and you kind of knew the ones that were a bit more promiscuous than others, but you don't go around, you know, talking about it. And I think we were, you know, I was more comfortable to go to a health service, and one that was Balangi, because they didn't tie back to, there was no way it could go back to you or your family. So I felt comfortable to go to a health service rather than talking to peers about it.
For my mum, because I was a result of teenage pregnancy, and like my mum said she was more comfortable going to a service provider rather than telling her own peers, because only 17 and people already looking down on you being pregnant at school. And my mum, she shared a story with me not too long ago that the first person to find out she was pregnant was her GP. And to this day, the GP didn't tell my nana, who also worked at the GP as a nurse. So, like, yeah, that's the difference between the boys and the girls. So, girls will be more comfortable to go straight to the services, whereas the boys kind of beat around the bush, and yeah, they'll be proud about, you know, the girls they're seeing and all that sort of stuff, but they won't have the balls to, you know, go to services like our girls do. So maybe that's something the boys can learn from the girls, how to access a service.
I think for boys it's like, for them they wear it like trophies. I've slept with, or I've had things with dealings with this girl and that girl, but when they actually come to pregnancy they're like, oh shuck. Who do I go out for an escape for? Where's my get out of jail free card? Who do I call? And then they just wait for the girl to sort out the problem for them, really.
I think because the girl, it carries a lot more burden for them, and so they're more cautious of how to take care of it. They're thinking ahead, whereas for the boys, it's just right there.
Shout out to the girls.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I can't get a girl pregnant. Especially for young people, it's scared you're either going to get a hiding or something's going to get you, or because, sex is such a sensitive and, intimate and sacred topic. And, especially from a religion point of view for Pacific people, a lot of it, and from my understanding, for most Pacific religions, is you can't have sex until you're married. Because once you're finally married, then, it's supposed to be like your forever person, and therefore you should only have sex with that person. But for me, there's so much stigma and fear around, talking to your parents just in about sex in general.
It's like a generational thing, eh? So my grandparents, they came from Samoa, and then my parents were born here first, and then I was the second generation born. So I couldn't imagine what life was like for my parents when they were pregnant with me. My parents, I guess they took one for the team, and then for their kids, me and my siblings, they made it easier for us. It's about that navigational thing, just trying to navigate and weave between obviously our traditional cultural worldview, but also this hybrid New Zealand view that we're living in today. So it's just a different generational thing. So whatever my parents learned and experienced, the younger lot have so much more to learn from them, and how they can make it a lot more accessible or better to start conversations about sexuality or sexual health.
It's such a like what you said, Elijah. It's such a it's an unspoken thing. Like, you do not talk about sexual health at all. Like, culture, religion, it all comes into play, and if you don't address those things, you'll never get to this conversation. I never even thought about bringing it up to my parents because of that fear, like you're gonna get a hiding, and it compromises, like in our house it was education first. You go to school, you get a good job. They came here from Samoa to them, like, it compromises the education that they come all the way from Samoa to get. Like, once you get a boyfriend, your whole life's gone. And so them talking about that or even bringing it up, it deters you from getting that education that they want you to get. So that's why we never spoke of it. And it wasn't until, like, you just did it behind their backs. That was just what you do. You do it behind their backs. And so I had a shotgun wedding because I was pregnant at 25, and I thought that we were past the shotgun wedding stage. And when I found out I was pregnant, I told my partner, and I was like, oh, nah, my parents will be all good. We won't have to get married. It's new times. As soon as I told my dad, he was like, usually getting married. I was like, what the heck? Like, I thought we were past that. I'm 25, I'm not 16, but yet we were still there. It still mattered to them when I was even at that age in a 4-year relationship. So it's not something that kind of changes for them over time. They still hold on to it.
So similar to what you shared, Saele, it was like for my parents when I was born down in Dunedin. My parents in their first year at university, they came back home to Wellington, and at the airport it was the first time my grandmother even knew I ever existed. My grandmother was like, oh, whose baby's that? And then my dad and mum quietly said, oh, it's Alice, it's your grandchild. And my nana just gave my parents the silent treatment for like a good week until she properly met me. When my parents returned to Dunedin for their second year study, my grandparents wanted to take me off my parents so they could focus on study, and obviously, like you said, around education comes first, and that's what my grandparents were trying to imply to my parents, that you guys go down there, finish your time down at Otago and come back to Wellington, and Ali will be all good. But obviously that was kind of something that my parents had to navigate, and obviously being first generation born New Zealand, That was an awkward time for them, trying to consult to the grandparents that we want to do this our way, and things turned out all good, so I'm here. But like what happened to you, what happened to my parents, it's still an ongoing thing that obviously for the younger generation we want to progress from there. So we can do things like if we get someone pregnant at 16, we can still have a good life. We just work twice as hard, and that's our Pacific people, we're used to that sort of stuff. So and again, it's about reframing things, like although in their eyes it may look like a curse or something bad, it can also be a motive factor. So I think just continue to reframe that narrative that sex is good, is a good thing, and having kids is a blessing, but also an honour to celebrate as well. So I think if we continue to shift the narrative towards things like that, then maybe we can talk more openly about sex amongst our Pacific communities. The barriers, we're used to barriers, Pacific people. But first, my grandparents, they overcame the barrier of, they moved from Samoa to New Zealand, to a foreign place, barely speaking any English. They bought a house, and then, today I can't even buy a house, but they did. And then you got my parents, obviously had me when they were in their freshman year down at Otago, and they broke a barrier and then had 5 more kids, still unmarried. So shout out to mum and dad, having 6 kids unmarried. They're two coming out of quite religious families, so they broke a barrier. And I think for me, I got some sort of barrier to break. So I think our barrier is younger generation, Pacific people in New Zealand, is our role is to speak openly about sex. I think that's our role to play. So then and that moved from Samoa. They laid the foundation. Mum and dad, they've done the good deed and had 6 kids unmarried. And then now my role is to just speak openly about it.
Yeah, because I think that just be there's so much stigma around sex for Pacific people. Try to be breaking that stigma, because sex isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you don't really want to go into a situation with you've had a long-term partner and you sort of want to do the deed. It's good to get some knowledge so you don't harm yourself while doing it, but you're also doing it safely, because there's a lot of for the gay community we have a high, I think it's HIV rate. So it's really good, just to make sure you're breaking the whole stigma around sex. So you're just having safe sex rather than going in blind, because you don't want to catch a STI, or you don't want to hurt yourself while doing the deed, and just making sure that you yourself are safe and just in general while having sex.
And I think maybe just, you look after your physical health, then you look after your mental health, and then there's spiritual health, and then there's sexual health. It goes together in making and creating safe spaces for Pacifica, and kind of equipping them to have those safe conversations with I don't know if it will be adult to children, or to adolescents, or even just adult to adult. Start with adult to adult first, just talking about what they grew up with, like how we're talking now. If they're comfortable to talk adult to adult, then that kind of breaks that barrier of talking about it, and then they could look at it from, you could progress to adult to adolescent, or adult to their children. I think you've got to just start creating the safe spaces and making sure that they're equipped to be able to talk about it. It's definitely not happening, and it'll be foreign to them, and maybe steering away from the the religion part. That they're gonna believe if it's their beliefs, that's their beliefs. You can't turn around and say it's that's wrong, because you've got to embrace what everything that you are, culturally, spiritually, and so you just got to weave it properly, and I reckon just equipping, like talking to the adults, so that their children can open up to them.